My boyfriend has an obsession with his childhood teddy bear, and it's making this relationship unbearable. Posted by you/throwaway wondery. I, 21F, have been with my boyfriend, 23M, for 3 months now, so it's still pretty new. So far, everything is going well except for this tiny little detail. He has this teddy bear, let's call him Teddy. Teddy has always been a part of my boyfriend's life. He got him at birth, and when he was around the age of 5 or 6, or whatever age is considered appropriate to take a teddy bear away from a child, his parents tried to take Teddy away. He screamed and cried so much that they ended up giving in. So, he kept Teddy with him his whole life. He mentioned Teddy to me pretty early on, about a week after we started dating. He showed me pictures of him, and I found it cute at first. He had plenty of photos of Teddy in different situations, him with a mug, lying in bed, studying, etc. I honestly thought it was adorable since I assumed it was just a joke and didn't think Teddy was such a big part of his life. But as we got to know each other better, he started mentioning him more. He'd often make jokes about him. When he had to go back to his flat, he'd say, "I have to go back, Teddy is waiting for me," and then he'd text me later, "Okay, I put Teddy to bed, so now I might go to sleep too, I don't want to wake him up." It was a little weird, but still cute. But then he really started talking about him constantly, always linking what we were doing to Teddy. Oh, I wish Teddy was here to see this. Teddy doesn't really like people, so I won't bring him to the party, etc. He'd send me selfies with Teddy at least twice a week. He also sometimes said weird things like, whenever we watched a sex scene in a movie, he'd say, "That's what Teddy and I do when we're alone," or when I asked when he lost his virginity, he replied, "Oh, I lost it with Teddy a few years ago." These jokes made me uncomfortable. He always seemed to think of Teddy as a baby/son/brother, so sexualizing him felt extremely weird to me. I told him that it was uncomfortable, but he just laughed, and I don't think he took me seriously. About a month ago, I told him I was okay with him bringing Teddy when he stayed at my place. I could see he was sad to leave him, and I was also very curious to finally see Teddy in person. I can't go to my boyfriend's flat due to strict rules against guests. So, that day, I drove to his place, and he came out with all his things and Teddy. When he got in the car, he pulled Teddy out of his bag and had him give me a kiss on the cheek. As we drove, he opened the window and put Teddy outside, kind of like how you do with a dog. He said it was rare for Teddy to travel like that, and he could feel that he was happy. Teddy smells a lot, my boyfriend hasn't washed him in 12 years. For the rest of the car ride, he hugged and kissed him. He has this weird twitch where he compulsively pats Teddy's back, which makes a strange sound because Teddy used to play music when you pressed his belly. He always rubs Teddy's clothes between his fingers. You can guess that Teddy is in pretty bad shape. He used to be red, and now he's just gray. When we're in bed, he always puts Teddy's mouth on mine, and I avoid it because I find it disgusting, and I told him I hate it, but he doesn't listen. He always tries to have Teddy touch different parts of my body. When we make love, I often end up finding Teddy between us, and every time I throw him away, my boyfriend says, "Oh no," he likes to watch, as a joke. He often mentions us having a three-way with Teddy, says Teddy is great with his tongue, and talks about them always doing kinky stuff together. Now, I'm not clueless, I know communication is important. I've tried talking to him so many times. Sometimes I bring it up jokingly so he doesn't feel attacked. Once, I asked who he would choose if he had to pick between me and Teddy, and he said Teddy, but I've also brought it up in a serious way. I've told him I don't like it when he rubs Teddy on my face and body, and I've said that his relationship with Teddy seems way too intense and weird. But every time, he doesn't take it seriously, he just makes jokes and never really tells me how he feels. I should mention that he's like this about any serious conversation. All he does is make awkward jokes, and he never truly expresses his feelings. He only told me I love you the first time because he was drunk. This is getting hard to handle. I've been away from him for 2 weeks and was kind of relieved not to see Teddy for a while, but all he did was keep sending pictures, and whenever I'd ask him what are you doing or what did you do today, his answer was always playing with Teddy. Today, he told me I was perfect, which was a first, and I wasn't expecting it. He doesn't give a lot of compliments. When I responded, "Really?" he replied, "Actually, no, Teddy is perfect, you come way after him." I just gave up and didn't reply. I have 3 questions. 1, am I overreacting? Am I the one not being tolerant enough? Am I just a boring girlfriend who can't appreciate some childishness in the relationship? 2, what should I do? Should I let him live his life with Teddy, ask him to make a real choice, or ask him to stop with the sexual jokes? Like, who am I to ask these things? Is it my place to tell him to stop being so weird with his teddy bear? 3, how do I get him to finally talk to me and take me seriously? Commenter. How on God's green earth am I still single? Update 1 day later. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to all of you. I did not expect to get so many comments. For those who were worried, I'm safe. You all really scared me, though. I had many questions asked, so I'm going to quickly reply to the ones I saw most often. Why are you with this guy? Are you insecure? Why are your standards so low? I obviously didn't write down his nicest qualities. Apart from this weird teddy bear fetish, he was a completely normal guy, with friends, going to parties, studying, and so on. In fact, he's quite the popular guy, though I don't care about that kind of thing. He took me on dates and made me feel special. I really thought he was a keeper. At first, him being a little childish didn't bother me. I, myself, have stuffed animals, and even though they're in the cupboard, I used to love them as a kid. It was when he started sexualizing his bear and involving me in it that I freaked out. The problem is, it's so hard to tell when he's joking or not. He constantly makes jokes, which is why I could never tell whether I was overreacting. Is he just joking, or does he mean what he says? However, one thing I really didn't see coming, and you guys helped me realize it, is his lack of respect towards me and my boundaries. Sometimes it's easier to see things from an external point of view. This whole time, I was too focused on wondering whether it was normal for me to feel uncomfortable, and I didn't realize that he never once tried to make me feel more comfortable, even though I told him how I felt. Thank you all a lot because that's the one thing you really helped me with. I would have probably taken longer to realize it on my own, even though it now seems obvious. Run away, he's going to unalive you, he's a psychopath, etc. Although his behavior is extremely weird, I don't see him hurting anyone. But obviously, it's easier for me to tell, since you all had to base your opinions on what I said. He doesn't match the psychopath personality at all. I'm not allowed to visit him because he lives in a private home, someone hosts him in one of their bedrooms, and this person doesn't allow any visitors. It is weirdly strict, yes, but it's believable, and I once saw his sister, who confirmed that she herself couldn't visit him. One thing is sure, though, although he may not hurt anyone, he seems to have serious problems, and I'm not sure I can handle it. It's fake, it looks like the movie Ted. I know it all seems surreal, but it is true. I have multiple pictures of Teddy if some of you are interested. I know a lot about Teddy's past because my boyfriend won't stop talking about him. That's how I knew. I know the movie Ted, but I have never seen it, and my boyfriend actually suggested that we could watch it about a month ago. Burn Teddy, make him disappear, etc. Haha, thank you, I did think about it a lot. I often hide him when he brings him to my place so I know exactly where he is, and my boyfriend doesn't think about him, he always ends up looking for him, though, but still, it gives me a break. What did you do in the end? I was supposed to see him today, so I picked him up, and we drove to my place. Of course, Teddy was there, and when he got in the car, my boyfriend had him give me kisses and stuff. I said, "Stop, please," in a cold way, and he stopped. I told him we needed to talk, and he listened because I started crying. I thought it would be hard for me to start talking, but since I was so stressed from all your comments, I just broke down and cried. I told him how I needed him to stop with Teddy, that he needed to stop being so close and dependent on him, and that Teddy shouldn't come to my place anymore. At first, he was silent, but then he said he didn't understand why I was so uncomfortable with it, that he was purely joking, that he knew Teddy wasn't real, and that it hurt him to see that I thought he had a problem. I was extremely disappointed with his reaction and just told him I needed a break. I drove him back to his place, and that's where I am now. Edit. Thank you all for your support. I realized there was some confusion. No, I'm not at his place. I'm home and safe. Tonight, I'll sleep at a friend's so she and I can talk about it, and I'm never going back to him. He sent me terrible messages all night, which convinced me to never get back with him. Thank you again for helping me, and have a nice day.
My girlfriend changed into a different person after I made her my fiancé, going out to clubs and connecting with as many guys as she can to get it out of her system, so I'm changing my mind about our future. Posted by you/Joey Spaghetti I, 25M, met my, now ex, fiancé in my first year of college. We were both 18 and went from friends to lovers pretty quickly. We clicked so well, and everything was so easy and effortless. We had a really good relationship. It was the kind of relationship that everyone wishes they were in, the kind of relationship that people idolized and said, if those two broke up, then love doesn't exist. You get the picture. For the purpose of this post, let's call my ex Ashley. Ashley was everything I was looking for in a woman: funny, smart, attractive, down-to-earth, and family-oriented. She wanted to build a life together. Our families grew close over the course of our relationship. It was like we were already one big family before even getting married. As planned, I popped the question a year ago, not knowing that this would change everything. She said yes, of course, but things started to change. Slowly but surely, over the months, she became more distant. I tried to ignore it and chalk it up to nervousness, cold feet before taking the big marriage plunge. I should have trusted my instincts. She always went out with her group of friends on the weekends. I've been on these outings before, usually, it's clubbing and drinking. It's not my scene, but I trusted my girl, so I had no problem with her going without me. These outings became much more frequent after I popped the question. I tried to ignore my gut feeling that something was wrong. I should have listened. Last week, I got a text from one of her girlfriends. She said she felt super guilty about what had been going on. According to her, Ashley had been worried about getting married. She felt that she hadn't had a chance to explore other options, and the prospect of getting locked down for life made her really anxious. On these outings, she would frequently flirt with guys, dance with them, grind on them, and make out with them, to get it out of her system. Since she wasn't going all the way with them, she didn't consider it cheating. According to the friend, she also gave one guy slop top in the club bathroom. She sent me pictures and videos from some of those escapades. My heart sank. I felt like I died that day. I thanked the friend for telling me and asked her to keep it between us. For me, any form of cheating is a big no-no. I knew it was over. What makes this worse is that I have a past with cheating. She knows about my high school ex who cheated on me, and being a stupid teenager, I tried to end it all. This just makes the whole situation cut even deeper. She knew how much hurt she could cause and still went ahead with it. I wanted to crawl into bed and cry for a month. I wanted to be weak. I felt weak. I decided I would give myself the chance to mourn and cry over this after I protected myself. My fiancé and I share an apartment that we both pay rent for 50-50. I decided to take 2 days off work and covertly started to move my things out to my brother's house across the city. He knows about everything and immediately offered his place to me. The first day, I moved non-essential items out. When Ashley got back from work, she made a comment about it, but I brushed it off by saying I sold some stuff and took some more things to a storage unit to tidy and clear space in our apartment. She didn't question it. I was furious inside about everything I had found out but kept cool to avoid suspicion. She noticed I was a bit withdrawn, but I told her I was just tired and stressed from work. The second day, while she was at work, my brother and his wife came over to help me pack everything else, and I was fully moved out by 3 p.m. that day. Since then, I have avoided every single form of communication sent by my ex. I have completely cut her off. I refuse to talk to her or her family. I don't even want to confront her about what happened. She came home that day and saw everything was gone. She texted all my friends and family, who in turn texted me, but I only responded to my parents, who were fully behind me and my decision. Her family and friends are blowing up my phone and saying that I'm a jerk for leaving without a word. They've even been blasting me on social media. I don't really care. She knows what she did. To me, she is dead. She doesn't exist. Because of all this backlash, my brother and his wife are now also questioning if it was right of me to completely ignore everyone. This has caused me to doubt myself a bit, so here I am. Update 1 day later. After an overwhelming amount of people screamed at me in the comments to speak out, I decided to break my silence. I didn't want to make this whole thing public. Despite what she did, some part of me still cares for her. I was with her for 6 years. You can't just throw that away overnight. I came to the conclusion that the right thing to do was to talk to her parents. Only her family needed to know. Everyone else can have whatever opinion they want of me, I don't care. The people who truly know me and are close to me are the only ones I care about. I sent a detailed message of what happened to my closest friends and family. All of them, of course, believed me right away, no pictures needed. I didn't feel like it was necessary or appropriate to spread those pictures of her, so I didn't. Now that the people I cared about were sorted, I moved on to her parents. I messaged her mom, who, by the way, I had gotten so close to I considered her a second mom, and she considered me a son. She was very upset with me but agreed to meet up. I felt like this needed to be an in-person conversation rather than a nuke I drop in an email with everyone they know CC'd. I met her mom and her dad at a diner we used to frequent for breakfast. I know, so cliché. It was quite emotional. They were understandably upset. They didn't do anything wrong, and I cut them out of my life like nothing happened. I understood why they were upset, so when they were confronting me, I was very quiet, just listening. Letting them get it all out. I admit I was tearing up with them. That is, until they accused me of some things. It's been a whole week since all of this went down. In that week, a lot happened. Apparently, according to her parents, my ex convinced everyone that I cheated and that she kicked me out, and I haven't been answering anyone because I was so ashamed of what I had done. LOL. I literally laughed out loud. I responded by saying that I am sorry and I wish them a happy life and walked out. I was so freaking upset. I couldn't have even imagined being accused of this. What a freaking joke. I can't believe her parents would believe her and throw me under the bus so fast. I walked out because I'm pretty sure I would have said some things I'd regret to her parents. I didn't want to do this, but she left me no choice. I activated the nuclear option. I went home, made an email titled "For Your Reading Pleasure," and attached every picture her friend sent me, including screenshots of the chat with her friend where she expressed how guilty she felt about the cheating. I also attached the videos of her grinding and making out with other guys. I included a long explanation detailing everything that has happened since D-Day. I ended the email by saying that I do not wish to be contacted and that I expect my ring back at some point. I attached her, her parents, any friend I could think of, and a coworker that I just so happened to know as well. Screw it. So that's where I'm at now. I may be the jerk for sending that email, but she really tested my friggin' limits when I found out what she was telling people. I have zero regrets. Currently crashing at my brother's place on the pull-out couch. He's helping me get through this, as much as one can, I guess. Who knows what kind of fallout that email will create. Either way, I'm gonna sit back and relax. Second update 2 months later. I wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone who reached out to me and offered kind words of support and advice. The reason it took me 2 months to come back here and write an update is that so much has happened in such a short span of time that even I'm having trouble processing it. The fallout after I sent that nuke of an email was catastrophically hilarious. My phone was blowing up with my ex's friends and family asking me tons of questions. Before I sent that email, everyone was under the impression that I was a cheater and had been kicked out. That email not only cleared my name, but it also basically turned everyone against my ex. Rumors of what happened started circulating at her job. I attached one of her coworkers to the email, if you remember from my last update. Apparently, she couldn't take the embarrassment and ended up quitting. Her parents were less than impressed and refused to take her back in. They reached out to me and apologized for the way things went down. They recognized that they didn't have all the facts and judged me too quickly. I'm cool with them now. They told me that my ex was struggling to make payments for her half of the rent. When I covertly moved out, I contacted our landlord and explained the situation. We only had 3 months left on the lease, so I paid my half for those 3 months, so I'm in the clear. Honestly, it was worth it even though I'm not living there. Our mutual friends also didn't take too kindly to being lied to and basically being manipulated to hate me. From what I've heard, most of our shared friends don't talk to her anymore. Even some of her girlfriends who knew what had been happening behind my back stopped talking to her, which is a little ironic if you ask me. I guess now that everything is public, no one wants to be associated with her. And speaking of her friends, remember the one that initially came forward to me about this because she felt so bad? Yeah, so we're dating now. I guess through all the trauma, drama, and craziness, we started texting more and more. At first, she was just very supportive. She comforted me and helped me come to terms with what happened. But slowly and surely, we became closer and started to talk about our lives, our interests, our dreams. We realized we had a lot in common. We are also both single and young. We kind of just fell into it naturally. She's honestly so great, very kind and loving. I am aware that some people may think this is just a rebound, but I'm really enjoying my time with her, and things are going great. I feel great. Since everything went down, I have had no contact with my ex. I've heard through multiple friends that she is livid that I ghosted her and won't even talk to her. She says what I'm doing to her is torture because I won't even give our relationship closure. I just laughed because if she thinks what I'm doing is torture, then she's clueless about what she put me through. I'm honestly good. I will go the rest of my life without ever talking to her again. Call me petty. Call me dumb. I am who I am, and I feel this is right. As for me, life is looking good. I'm dating an amazing girl, I've gotten so much support from my family and friends, it's nice to see who the real ones are, you know, the ones that actually stuck with me throughout this whole ordeal, and best of all, I feel like I'm really moving on from this whole thing. Hope this update gives you all closure. So many of you messaged me needing an update. It just took me a second to gather myself to be able to write this in the midst of all this craziness. Take care, everyone. Op in the comments. I did get the ring back. I had to threaten legal action. My ex was stubborn, but I ended up getting the ring back through her parents.
My daughter is allergic to being financially responsible and is coming to me again for help. Advice please. Posted by you/Rebel Yeller. My daughter, 35F, used to live a frugal lifestyle but became an emotional spender in her mid-20s, and it's now out of control. She is also the worst housekeeper imaginable, which leads to buying too much of things that can't be found and having to buy new items because necessities and frivolities get ruined. Her house is a literal pigpen of junk, garbage, and clutter. She has 3 cats and cleans the litter boxes about once per month. She and her first husband of 8 years divorced when he came out. They have 2 young children. He has a good job, and when they were together, they were probably bringing in $200K. We live in an area where the cost of living is reasonable. He's likely making about $180K now and pays child support. Within 2 years of the divorce, she remarried. She and husband number 2 bought a house they simply could not afford unless the sun, moon, and stars aligned daily. It was a 6-bedroom house with over 3,300 finished square feet. Their combined income was in the neighborhood of $125K, excluding child support. The house was $325K, and to afford it, her husband had to work at least 10 hours of overtime every week. Next thing I know, they've bought a new SUV, and a few months later, he's sporting a brand new, gigantic pickup. Then they're taking a trip to Paris for the holidays. I didn't know how much they were making, but she's a smart girl, and I assumed they were spending within their means. About 18 months into the marriage, she asked for a divorce, and that's when everything came out. They were in debt by about $80K. He had taken a new job that didn't offer overtime and had a lower salary, so there was no way they could pay for the house. Throughout the mess of getting the divorce, her sisters, brothers, and I loaned/gave her in excess of $5K for emergency items like a lawyer, apartment deposit, moving expenses, utility bills, etc. At that point, she came to me for help. With the sale of the house, she would be able to pay off some of her debt but was left with about $39K in credit card debt. I considered paying about $28K for her and setting up a repayment plan while also establishing plans for her to get her own debts under control. I expressed clearly that this would require a complete change in her spending habits as she would have to live for 5 years as if she had no money. But after that, everything would be paid off, and she'd be all good. She was focused only on my paying off a bunch of her debt, and I could see that. As we discussed ways to cut her expenses, she brushed off every reasonable suggestion, such as no cable/streaming services, they have internet and YouTube, no weekly meals out, grocery shopping at Walmart and Aldi instead of Target, and no daily trips to Target just because. During this time, she went a little nuts before the divorce was finalized, and 2 days after we met, she was laid off when her position was terminated. 3 days later, we got together for her birthday, and her 9-year-old daughter was wearing a $200 pair of new cowboy boots that she had gotten 2 days before when she and her mom went to see some big-name country singer in concert out of town. At that point, I knocked myself right out of helping her. She was paying me back for a few thousand in loans, and I just stopped expecting those payments but planned to resume them when her situation improved. She was out of work for about 3 months and finally landed a job making 66% of her former salary, about $50K. I haven't asked her to resume her loan payments. She called the other day because when she got her new SUV, it was an adjustable loan. The new rate is coming up, and her payment is going to more than double, to over $800 a month. She can't afford that, and she has no credit to get a car on her own. She wants my help with that. In the last 2 weeks, she had professional family portraits taken and got a new tattoo, piercing, and full head hair color. My credit score is 830, my only debt is my house payment, which is ridiculously low. I live an extremely frugal life, mostly. I've got a great savings account, excellent retirement savings, and I still work and make enough to live better than I do. I am financially conscientious. I do some fun things with my money, and I have earned that right. If I don't help her, she will have the car repossessed. She has to have a car, or everything will spiral. Also, she's a terrible driver and has been at fault in as many as 6 accidents in the last 8 years. I am at a loss for how to help her because I know how she is. Someone has been there to bail her out over the last 2 years, which I believe has made her lazy, complacent, and blind to her situation. She is coming over tomorrow, today now, to talk about her finances. I insisted she bring everything, including all of her bills, bank account info, salary info, 401k and other retirement info, and child support. She said she'd be willing to let me help her set up a budget and plan. I've heard that before. So, please, can anyone offer me any advice on how to proceed? I want to help her, but I do not want to enable her. I can't make her change, and I'm not going to try. I don't know what to do. Help, please. Update 8 months later. 7 months ago, I posted about my adult daughter, who appeared to be actively working to ruin her life financially and was always asking for money from me, her siblings, and probably her friends. I wanted to find a way to help her. I received a lot of don't responses, as well as some good and interesting advice. Here's how it all played out. She brought all her debt and income papers with her. She was making enough money to pay her bills, including the new amount that would come due each month for her car. The problem was how and where she was spending her money. The biggest culprit was meals out. The amount was staggeringly high, nearly a quarter of her monthly income for her and her 2 kids, whom she has on a 1 week on / 1 week off shared custody arrangement. After reviewing everything, I offered a few suggestions on how to immediately cut down on spending. I was met with pushback, not strong, but she wasn't really buying into my suggestions. So I asked her what she wanted, and she said, I want to be able to pay my bills and keep my car. I replied, okay, stop eating out. There's $1,200 a month after you buy groceries. That's enough to pay for your car and start paying off your credit cards without borrowing money from anyone. She got angry. So I said, I'll work up a plan for you and email it over later. She left, obviously unhappy. That night, I worked out an aggressive repayment plan that would pay off her credit card debt in 2 years while still allowing for meals out a couple of times a month at kids' eat-free places and a family entertainment night at some inexpensive spot, even better if coupons were involved. The plan showed how to pay off the highest interest rates first while still paying more than the monthly minimum on the other cards, and it laid out how the debt would be reduced each month. I chose a 2-year repayment plan because her kids will soon be in junior high, and this would give her the income for the extra expenses that come as a result. She could have extended it to a 3-year plan, and really, the only changes she had to make were cutting Netflix, cutting the Apple Watch, and stopping eating out. All the savings would go directly towards fixed expenses and debt, and if she didn't spend as much as budgeted on food, she could put it into savings. What did I get in response? Complete silence. She cut contact with me and her sisters. She'd done this before, so we all just said fine and didn't try to work it out. Then, 3 months later, I received a Venmo payment towards her loans. Her sister said she got one the same day. The payments have come each month since. A few weeks after the first one, we all saw on social media that she had taken a part-time job. In the last several weeks, she started sending texts. Most recently, she mentioned that her credit score has gone up over 200 points this year, and she's working her tail off to pay off bills. It was never my intent to give her more money or co-sign any loans. Her silence made that easier. I'm not sure if someone else loaned her the money or got her a consolidation loan. It appears she has taken financial responsibility for herself and her kids and is making good progress. I overheard my sister and closest friends talking crap about my life and how I don't deserve my boyfriend. Posted by u/Trozesfeld. Firstly, my 23F sister, 25F, and this group of friends, 20s, are what I would consider my closest friends. I love these girls to death. I literally tried to donate a kidney for one of them. I am 100% heartbroken. My boyfriend is an amazing guy. He's kind, funny, smart as hell, and pretty much a model. He's just gorgeous. He's also asexual. This isn't a problem for me, and we worked it out. He's also very open about it, and everyone knows, which I entirely support. We were supposed to hang out a week ago, but after spending about half an hour together, his job called him and he had to leave. This didn't bother me much because I had a crazy headache and went home. My sister and I share an apartment to save money, and we have a year-long lease, so I guess I'm screwed. Long story short, I closed my door, didn't turn on any lights, and took a nap. The next thing I know, I wake up to my sister's voice. She and those friends were at our house. From what I heard, they were going to a club and were drinking a bit while waiting for the others. I didn't get up because I was lazy and would have had to put on pants. Then they started talking about me. I'm not proud, but I was curious. They were talking about how they couldn't believe I was dating my boyfriend, how he was too good for me, and how I was too ugly to get a guy like him. My sister then started saying how being asexual is obviously an excuse to not have bedroom intimacy with me. I'm not pretty, and while it does make me insecure, I know I have other good characteristics, but it was very hard hearing that. They also made fun of my learning disability. They called me the R word, which I can't even bring myself to write. They said I wasn't even financially stable and made fun of my job. They said I had to beg to be effed. All of my friends laughed, and all of them talked badly about me. I was crying pretty hard at that point. They left, and I didn't know what to do. I went to bed and basically made myself scarce this week. I get up earlier, get home later, or stay at my boyfriend's. I have answered their messages but was somewhat cold. I know I have to talk with them, even if it's just to cut off contact, but I can't open my mouth right now. I feel so ashamed and sad. My boyfriend is also worried, but I can't get what they said out of my head. I know it's not true, and my boyfriend is asexual, but I feel like I'm not worthy of being with him. My sister is my best friend. I freaking told her how I feel too ugly and stupid to be with him. I showed her our messages, and we spoke about his asexuality. I love her so much it hurts. I can't stand looking at her, knowing she was saying those things behind my back, and that none of my friends said anything. I just don't know what to do. I could break my lease, I guess, even though it would be very expensive, but I don't know how to say why I'm doing it or how I can face them. I don't know if I should tell my boyfriend. Update 10 days later. Hey everyone, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for the messages and comments on my last post. They truly helped me get out of bed and face the day. I showed my boyfriend the last post because I just didn't know how I could say it. He was very sad and disappointed, but being asexual, he has had his fair share of jerks. He mostly felt angry for me and agreed with the majority of the advice that I should confront her. We decided a letter would be the best choice since I actually write a lot of letters, and it's not a direct confrontation. I like writing letters for different moments, like letters for when the person is sad, happy, angry, scared, etc., so I do have some technique, but this was, without a doubt, the hardest thing I've ever written. I decided to go for something simple and blunt. I told her I heard what they said about me, and while I was willing to work on our relationship, I needed distance from her and this whole situation. I talked with my landlady, and she was super sweet and had no problem breaking the lease. I offered to find someone to take my place, but apparently, she has someone who could use the room, so that's cool. I intended to pack and leave the letter on her bed, but she came home early and caught me. I basically said screw it to myself and told her I heard them saying I wasn't good enough and calling me names. First, she tried to deny it, which I wasn't having. Then she tried to justify it and say I was overreacting, but I just stared at her. Then she finally started to apologize and cry. At that moment, I actually thought we might be able to save the relationship, but then she started making herself the victim. The main points were, 1. I just can't understand how hard it is to be pretty, not even kidding. 2. I don't understand how she feels because I'm used to not being the best. 3. It's not fair I get a gorgeous boyfriend who is completely out of my league while she's single. 4. She feels embarrassed when we go out together and she has to tell people that my boyfriend is actually mine, not hers. And 5. She knows asexuality doesn't exist and says we're doing this just for attention. I just kind of froze. I wish I had said something, but I couldn't open my mouth. She then said she was going out to recover from our traumatic conversation and left. I just packed the rest of my things and left the letter on her bed. I'm currently at my boyfriend's place, but I'm looking for a free room that isn't super far from my job. I also wrote and sent letters to my friends and then blocked their social media/contacts. I'm certain they'll find a way to approach me, as we work close, but I couldn't care less. Besides all of that, last Friday I had dinner with my parents. I gave them an edited version of what happened, because I don't want to talk about my intimate life, and told them I broke the lease/blocked my friends. They said I shouldn't be angry because it was true, and that the first time they met my boyfriend, they thought I was playing a prank. My dad then started saying I was being selfish by breaking the lease and, I kid you not, betraying my sister's trust, and that you don't do this with family. So yeah, I've been ignoring them since this happened, as well as my sister. Overall, I'm fine. I actually feel more tired than angry or sad.
My sister keeps calling me an incel even though I'm paying for her life. Let's see how she likes it if I leave. My 23M, younger sister, 15F, is currently in a phase where she thinks she's the most unique and special person in the world. Because of this, she's also developed some sort of superiority complex against other people's hobbies, especially if she doesn't like them. The problem started when she started using the word incel to insult me and my hobbies out of nowhere. She seemed to notice that this word hurts and disturbs me, so she keeps calling me an incel just to elicit a reaction from me. I'm playing a video game? I'm an incel. I'm watching anime? I'm an incel. I'm building a Gundam? I'm an incel. I've talked to her about it and asked her if she knows the meaning. She knows it perfectly well and she thinks that I fit the description well. I asked her why she thinks so, and she tells me that she just knows that I'm an incel. Because of that, I've just been ignoring her. This seemed to set her off because she began to annoy me on another level, such as pulling my headphones off just to call me an incel and even just using incel as a general nickname for me. I talked to my parents last night and told them that if they don't do anything about her behavior towards me, then I will move out of the house. I'm a teacher, so teenagers being pieces of crap every day are normal to me. However, I don't want the same behavior in my own home. I don't want to deal with the same teenage tantrums that I've been dealing with at work, especially when I'm trying to rest or just minding my own business. At school, I have some sort of authority over the teens that I'm handling. I can call their parents, the guidance counselor, or anyone who could correct their behavior. But at home? I don't have that same authority. I'm just her brother. I can't force her to behave, and my mom doesn't do anything to correct her behavior either. I've had a heart-to-heart talk with my mom and she thinks that my sister is innocent. She thinks that my sister is just joking. She genuinely doesn't think she needs to discipline my sister. I get that siblings being annoying are normal, however, my sister is old enough to know that her actions have consequences. Not only that, but her words can ruin me and my career. I work at the same school my sister is enrolled in. What if she calls me an incel in front of my students? What if she spreads false rumors about me abusing her if I ever discipline her? What if she tells people that I force her to do things against her will? My dad and I pay 50-50 for everything because his salary alone can't sustain all of the bills. I live in the Philippines where even up to 5 generations of families live under one roof. In fact, it's expected for children to take care of and financially support their parents and their grandparents as soon as they have their own jobs. My mom is a volunteer worker in an animal shelter and refuses to seek a paying job because men are expected to be the sole providers. She still justifies my sister's behavior as just being a typical teenager and is begging me to be more understanding because I'm the older and more mature sibling. My dad knows that I am serious about moving out and agreed that they needed to punish my sister. I don't like ultimatums, but I feel like I don't have other choices anymore. I don't want to yell at my sister or even fight with her because I know that it will simply make her attitude worse towards me. Update 1. Shortly after I gave my ultimatum, my dad punished my sister by taking away everything I bought for her, like her laptop, her phone, her PC, and her Switch. He told her, "This is how your life would be without your brother," and basically stored them away somewhere hidden from even myself. Since then, my sister became even more aggressive towards me. She calls me daddy's boy, snitch, coward, and many other names whenever we pass by each other both in public and at home. She even started to throw things at me unprovoked even when I'm not looking. They were soft things like towels, socks, stuffed toys, or handkerchiefs, but still. My mom keeps making excuses for her, and even consoled her when she was crying over her things being taken away. That was when I fully realized and accepted that she was mom's favorite. When I finally told my dad that I wanted to move out, he was understanding. He kept apologizing to me for not doing anything earlier because he was always at work. He's now making up to me by helping me look for an affordable renting space. He's also being a real champ right now for wanting to pay for the first 2 months worth of rent despite me telling him that he doesn't need to. He feels really guilty for not being able to notice my sister's behavior towards me for so long, and he thinks that it's the least he could do for me. I told my dad that he can give back the things I bought for my sister only if she shows real remorse or genuinely apologizes to me. If nothing changes by the new year, then I'll just keep everything for myself or sell them off somewhere. My mom didn't take the news very well. She's extremely cold to me now and told me that I'm abandoning her. According to my dad, she cries every night because she can't accept the fact that I'm moving out. For now, I'm temporarily staying with a kind friend. My dad encouraged me to detach myself from my mom and my sister as soon as possible when I told him she started throwing stuff at me. I don't think I'm going to be having any sort of relationship with my mom or my sister anytime in the future. I do feel really bad for my dad for having to deal with my mom and my sister alone, but I need to leave. My parents gave me up for adoption because they were still in high school when they had me. 24 years later, I found them. My mom had me when she was just 14, and I, 24M, was given up for adoption. Yeah, I know, crazy right? My parents told me about her growing up, and I still have the letter she wrote me, asking if they could give it to me when they deemed fit. It's crazy reading it sometimes and knowing it was a literal child who wrote it, saying she's sorry she couldn't be my mom but hopes I'm happy. She was open to having contact, but we moved for my dad's job when I was 11, and then it seemed impossible to find her. But luckily, I did. She's working at this small restaurant, and I keep going, but she doesn't know it's me. We talk sometimes, and she seems like a nice lady. Sometimes when she says something like, "Do you want a refill, honey?" or uses another term like that, I want to tell her, and let her know that I'm right here. I don't know why it makes me nervous. We talk sometimes, and she seems really genuine. If it's not super busy, she's more open to talking about random stuff. I literally drive 2 hours to come eat at this place just to see her. And it's like she knows me already because I'm there once or twice a week for the past 3 months, so she always says hi with a big smile. But man, if only she knew. Update 1. Well, I did it. I told her, and yeah, it was pretty heavy. My heart was beating super fast the entire time. I waited for her to finish her shift and until they were done closing up the restaurant. After she finished closing up, she saw me waiting in the parking lot. We waved and said hi to each other, but then I told her there was something serious that she needed to know. First, I apologized for keeping it from her for so long. She didn't react until I actually pulled out her letter. Then she started bawling from there, screaming and crying at the same time, and I didn't even have to finish the whole "in your son" speech. She just saw it and knew. It was crazy. The next thing I know, she's hugging me instantly, but then she pulled back and asked if it's okay to hug me. Of course it is, and we're just there hugging and crying in the parking lot. It hit her hard. Her legs gave out for a second, so I had to actually hold her up while she's still hugging me for a minute. What really got to me was her saying, "Look how big you've got." Also, hearing her cry made me cry too. She went back to open the restaurant, and we sat in there for hours talking about so many things. We had coffee, ate a slice of their pie, and just talked about anything and everything that came to mind. She told me that the second time I came to the restaurant, she got a feeling that I felt really familiar, but for her, it was hard to believe it could be me. So that feeling she had was pushed way down. She told me that for years after I was adopted, she would see kids around my age and used to think they were me. Then she would start crying in public. It really messed with her mind and made her depressed, so she didn't want to do the same when she first started seeing me in the restaurant. She said I looked so much like my biological dad when he was younger. We talked about him too. They stayed in contact with each other, in case I ever reached out to one of them so it would be easier to contact the other. I didn't have any hope about finding my biological dad since he was never mentioned, so I'm glad they both planned for this future scenario. She told me about how they both wanted to keep me, especially my biological dad. He didn't want me to be adopted, but he knew they had to because they were just kids. It took him a long time to get past it after I was born. That's why he didn't leave anything behind, because he didn't want to believe he would ever get to see me again. We talked for hours, until almost 2 in the morning. She wanted to know everything about me, but her main concern was, am I happy? Were my parents good to me? Did I have a happy childhood? And I did. I told her, thank you for helping to give me this life. We both cried again, but she cried the most. Everything was very emotional for her. Sometimes she would look really happy, but then get sad again. After my 18th birthday, she was hoping I would find her, that's why she stayed in the same city. But since I didn't, she always thought maybe I resented her, wasn't told I'm adopted, or maybe had decided it was better not to have her around. It made me feel bad for not telling her sooner. She told me it's not my fault, and I did the right thing by going at my own pace. Honestly, she's so sweet. The way she kept looking at me with the biggest smile made me emotional sometimes. It makes you think, how can someone who's been a total stranger your whole life look at you with so much love? It's wild. We learned so much about each other. She asked me if we could have dinner soon to keep talking, and if, at some point in the future, I'm interested, come over to her house so I can meet her husband. That all sounded really great. We exchanged numbers, and after I left, she sent a text telling me thank you for giving her this gift that she didn't know would ever come. My girlfriend came over, and she hugged me while I cried. I wasn't sad, these were happy tears. Everything went better than I expected. There was still emotionally heavy stuff, but I'm still glad that we got to open up to each other. Update 2. Lots of you asked to let you know how it goes meeting my biological dad, and to say it was emotional is an understatement. To be honest, this was more nerve-wracking for me because I didn't know anything about him. With my bio mom, it was different because I watched her from afar and got to know her a little before it all came out. I asked my bio mom if she could be there too just because she knows him better, so it was the two of us waiting for him at this park. He was already crying before we even got to him. This guy is strong too, so he pulled me in for the biggest bear hug, and we were both crying. He told me he wants me to know that they loved me so much, and he loves me. I lost count of how many times he'd come back in for one more hug. This definitely got to him, and he kept saying, "Thank you God," a few times while looking at my face. Hearing him tell me how much they loved me even back then meant so much to me, and not gonna lie, that had me holding him tight too. I'm sure to everyone at the park, it was weird seeing 3 crying people. My bio dad said he cried so many times just driving over here, he didn't think he had any more tears until he saw us. When we were all sitting down, it hit me that my bio mom was not kidding when she said we look alike. Obviously, he's older, but still, the similarities were crazy. He brought gifts too, which was a surprise. It was really nice. He told me I don't have to keep them if I don't want to, but he felt weird not coming with anything, and he's wanted to give this to me for a long time. One was a teddy bear holding a picture frame of him at the hospital holding me. He was 15 years old, it's still crazy to realize that. The other thing was a journal. The journal thing was stuff he said he started writing to me years after I was adopted. He was in therapy, and that helped him cope, thinking he would give them to me one day, his way of still feeling connected to me. I haven't read everything yet, but some of the pages were his thoughts and as if he was talking directly to me. How he felt when they found out she was pregnant, then the adoption, everything going on in his mind when he first got to hold me as a baby. I didn't even know he was at the hospital too. It was not what I was expecting. It really got me. I read some more of what he wrote last night that really got me crying. I'm sad to think how much this affected them emotionally for years. Also, I think it's pretty sweet he wanted to write this for me. We talked about his own life, which was pretty hard, his struggles with home life and the feelings he had about giving me up. Then he wanted to know everything about me, basically with the same questions my bio mom had. I made sure they knew they made the right decision because my life was pretty great. He looked like he wanted to cry when he knew that because that's all they hoped for, and it was something he always wondered about for years. My bio mom left a bit after we were more comfortable so we could talk more in private once it didn't feel too awkward between us. From there he told me stories about how he met my bio mom. Sometimes he'd point out stuff he noticed about me that reminds him of her or me and him having similar likes. My bio dad was really open about sharing everything. Like he really was getting ready for this meeting. He hoped it would happen and prayed every day to see me again because he had so many things he wanted to tell me. Overall, a really good first meeting. I'm glad how it went. He's open to the idea of meeting my parents. After I told them about all this because they definitely want to meet my bio parents again if I'm comfortable with that, obviously if my bio parents are too. Let's see when that happens. I don't know how it's gonna feel for me. They've met each other before I was even born, but I never had them in the same place, so that'll be interesting. Me and my parents met up yesterday to have breakfast so I could tell them everything. My mom was so happy about how it went. She actually cried too when I was telling them about both their reactions. My dad was proud because he knew how hard it was in the months after finding my bio mom and not really wanting to make contact yet. I'm really happy to have their support because it's hard not to feel guilty about wanting to know more about my bio parents. They gave me a really good life, so for a while, it felt like maybe to them I was showing that it wasn't good enough for me and I'd rather have my bio parents. But they told me many times they want me to do this for myself, and they know how much I love them. And I really do. Finding them and meeting them was hard, but it was so worth it to me. And seeing their reactions made it feel even more worth it. I still can't believe it sometimes.
I raised my nephew as my own son because my sister didn't want him. Now her daughter is jealous of her brother because they're turbo poor. When I, 43F, was 18 and my sister, 47F, was 22, she became pregnant with my nephew Luke. My sister and her then boyfriend, who is now her husband, didn't show any interest in Luke when he was born, so I took on the role of caring for him. I enlisted the help of my grandmother, who was a tremendous support and an angel, and she watched over him while I was in my last year of high school in exchange for me cleaning and cooking for her on the weekends. My parents weren't much help either. They would give me about $100 a month for Luke, and if you have a kid, then you know it's not much, so my grandmother and I were the only ones taking care of him. A year after I graduated from high school, I was kicked out with my nephew because my parents, sister, and her husband didn't want to deal with us anymore. My sister said she wished she had never given birth to him. I immediately went to my grandmother, and we visited a family law attorney. I obtained custody of him, and my sister and her husband signed their rights to me, so I will be calling Luke my son instead of my nephew. From then on, I lived with my grandmother, and while I attended community college and worked part-time, she looked after my son. It was a lot of work, especially when my grandmother passed away when Luke was 6. In her will, my grandmother left 90% of her things to me. This event prompted my parents and sister to reach out to me under false pretenses to reconnect and meet my son. However, the reunion didn't last long, and I made it clear to them that they could either behave appropriately or never see us again. My dad chose to genuinely reconnect with my son and me, and now we're close. On the other hand, my mom and I don't talk much, but she treats Luke kindly. When Luke was 8, both my sister and I became pregnant. That's when my sister decided she wanted my son back, and started telling him that my husband and I wouldn't love him anymore once my, in her words, actual son arrived. For context, my husband met Luke when he was 5, and we were already together for a year before that meeting. My husband treats Luke like his own, and we got married when my son was 7. We adopted him when he was 9, with his permission. We discovered that my sister was spreading these hurtful ideas when Luke broke down crying one day, expressing fear that we would abandon him once his younger brother was born. He explained what my sister and her husband had been saying, and we reassured him that it would never happen. Luke knows he's not my biological son, but he is undoubtedly my son. After that, I cut contact with my sister and her husband again, and pursued family and individual therapy for my son. When I finally gave birth to his younger brother, I made it clear to Luke that our love for him hadn't changed. About 2 years later, when my sister reached out, I decided to go low contact with her, with the approval of my son and husband. My husband and I live comfortably, while my sister and her husband sometimes struggle financially. My kids engage in extracurricular activities, receive the presents they desire, and go on a big family trip every summer. Meanwhile, my sister and her husband can't afford much. When my niece was around 9, my sister began making comments about how I needed to pay for this or that for my niece, and I told her it wasn't my responsibility. Although I gave my niece the gifts she wanted, and took her out from time to time, it wasn't even close to how I treated my own kids. Now, my second son is turning 17, and my husband and I were discussing getting him an affordable starter car, just as we did for Luke when he turned 17. Simultaneously, my niece is also turning 17, and apparently, my sister told her she would get her a car. However, my sister can't afford to buy her one, so she asked me to do so. I refused, explaining that I hadn't promised her a car, and it's not my responsibility to provide one. My sister got upset and didn't talk to me for a while after that. When my son's 17th birthday arrived, we surprised him with a car. A couple of days later, my niece called me, screaming and crying, asking why I hate her and why I can't treat her the same as her brother. Calmly, I explained that things were different, that her brother is my son, and while she is my niece, I can't buy her the same things as my son. I clarified that, as an aunt, my role involves birthday presents, Christmas presents, and showing up when it matters, nothing more. I emphasized that her brother will always mean more to me than she ever will. Despite my calm explanation, my niece continued yelling and accused me of being unfair before hanging up. Subsequently, my sister called to berate me about doing more. I pointed out that if she hadn't promised a car or my money to my niece, none of this would have happened. It's been a couple of days, and I'm receiving calls from some family and some of my sister's friends, calling me nasty names and some other things. I do feel a sense of guilt because my kids did grow up with more, and I suppose I could have helped more. So, am I the jerk for what I said to my niece? Update 1. To get some names in order, I will be addressing my niece as Emily, and my youngest son as Justin. 2 days after Emily's call, I decided to meet up with her. We decided to meet at a park that's a few minutes away from my home. When we met, Emily seemed normal but a little bit tired. I told her I didn't mean to hurt her in any way, but she needs to understand it's not my job because I'm not her parent. She said she understood that, but she was jealous that her brother and Justin got everything they wanted. I told her that first, Luke isn't her brother, but her cousin because of how things happened. Second of all, they don't get everything they want, they work for it. They get good grades, do chores, and stay out of trouble for the most part. I then asked her the real reason for why she was acting this way, as she never had a problem before this. She started crying, saying it wasn't fair that Luke and Justin get everything they want while she gets barely anything. She claimed that Luke lucked out in life by being adopted by my husband and me. She asserted that she deserves to have what my sons have, and that as family, I have to take care of her too. I told her that she is part of my family, but not my child. I do love her, but she's not my responsibility. I then asked her why she feels so strongly about it. She said that even though her parents take good care of her, she feels like she's just an obligation to them. When she sees how Luke and Justin were raised, she gets jealous because, in her eyes, we don't view the boys as an obligation. According to her, we are a family that's always together, always works through problems, and helps each other. Even though I stayed in her life and took her out with my family, she always felt jealous that she had to be the one to leave. She felt second place and believed that since I took in Luke, I should take her in with no problem. I told her that while I understand her feelings, I'm not going to treat her as my kid. I didn't raise her, but I do love her. It's her parents' job to get her a car or to help her get one. She got more upset, saying that I clearly don't care about her, and she left. I texted her, saying that I do care for her, but I'm not her mom, and it's not my job. After I got home, my husband and I talked, and we decided to call my sister. I told her that my family and I are going full no contact. My sister then asked about how I'm going to get in contact with Emily. I told her Emily is almost an adult, she can contact me if she wants. She then asked me if I was going to get Emily a car. I said no and told her that it's her job, that she's her mother and needs to act like it. Emily needs her to be a mom, and I hung up the phone, blocked, and deleted her number. The next day, I got a call from my mom. She believes that I should give Emily some money for a car if I won't give her one. I told her I wasn't going to do that and hung up because all it's going to do is cause a fight. I then called Dad and explained everything, and he thinks I'm right. Later, my dad called, asking if he could come over on Wednesday. When he showed up, he was visibly upset. Mom gave a big chunk of money out of my parents' retirement fund to my sister. This has caused my parents to have a huge fight, which led my dad to pack a suitcase and stay in a motel for a bit. Now I'm no contact with my sister and mom, and I'll be going low contact with my niece for now. Update 2. About a week after the post, I decided to talk to Emily, and we agreed to meet at my home. I asked everyone not to be home because I wanted her and me to talk privately. When she showed up, she didn't really want to look at me, and I asked her if I could give her a hug. She nodded her head, and the minute I hugged her, she cried. She said she was sorry for how she acted, and I told her she didn't need to apologize. I asked her about how her parents treat her again to understand more about what's going on. She told me that her dad treats her well and tries to spend time with her, but he's busy because he works 2 jobs. While my sister is home more, she usually just keeps to herself, and doesn't really like to be bugged. I then asked her if she feels like she's been neglected. She said no, just sometimes they don't have family time that much because her parents argue a lot, especially about money. Sometimes her mom does make her feel like an obligation, but she knows that they do love her. I brought up her referring to Luke as her brother, and asked if she truly felt that way about him. She explained that she sees him as a cousin but thought that if she played the brother card, I might feel inclined to help her. So I asked her if she knew how I ended up adopting Luke, and she confirmed that she knew, and that her dad had explained what happened. Apparently, my sister sugarcoated it, whereas her dad told her the blunt truth, the complete truth. I then asked her if she would like to spend a fun day out with me on Saturdays. She got excited and expressed that she would really like that. So, that weekend, we visited a restaurant she had been wanting to try, had a good time, and then went to a bookstore because she loves to read, and I bought her a couple of books that she wanted. When Emily and I were supposed to have our second weekend out, I had to cancel because Justin ended up in the hospital. While at football practice, he got tackled, which knocked the wind out of him and caused a bad asthma attack. This happened on a Friday, and Justin stayed at the hospital until Sunday. Emily and I were supposed to go out on Saturday, and that morning I called her and told her I had to cancel. Before I could tell her why, she started yelling at me, saying I never cared about her and hung up the phone. I tried calling her back, but it went straight to voicemail. Then I sent her a text saying that I didn't mean to hurt her, but Justin was in the hospital, and that we can have our day next weekend, but I never heard back from her. 2 days ago, my family and I were out for a family night when my neighbors called, saying that they called the cops because someone was vandalizing one of our cars. When we got home, the cops were there, and it was Justin's car. The car had scratches, little dents, paint, and there were 2 broken windows. My husband and I checked our security footage, and you could clearly see Emily and someone else vandalizing the car. My husband gave the video copy to the police, and Emily and her friend got arrested the next morning. My sister and mom came to my house, screaming that I was ruining my niece's life, and if I loved her, I would drop the charges. My husband is adamant that we don't drop the charges, and Justin and Luke agree with my husband, so that's where we stand now.
Today I messed up by taking special chocolates before my flight to Disneyland and making the entire security staff think I was special needs. Posted by you/simpleprogrammer21. To those of you who might have wondered if it's worthwhile to eat a bag of chocolates before boarding a flight, my experience might make you think twice. I figured that if I popped a few special chocolates after arriving at the airport, but before going through security, I'd sink comfortably into my seat on the plane, have a great time watching a lighthearted in-flight comedy movie, and painlessly arrive at my destination before I even knew it. I couldn't have been more wrong. Instead, I ended up living my own version of the I'm going to Disney World joke, making an incredible fool of myself in front of airport staff, and arming my wife with a story she loves to remind me of. She thinks it's still just as hilarious as it was the day it happened. My wife and I had wanted to visit Disneyland as adults for years, imagining how much fun many of the classic rides there would be after a couple of beers, and otherwise really just taking the time to appreciate it all in a way we probably never could have when we were kids. Earlier this year, we finally took the chance to go and booked our tickets, excited to take a real vacation and escape to the fantasy world of a Disney park for a few days. As the real genius I am, I figured I could only enhance the otherwise boring, uncomfortable, and fairly long flight by eating a bunch of chocolates once we got to the airport. I figured my timing was perfect, they wouldn't start kicking in until after we had gotten through security, and they'd last until we arrived and settled in at our hotel in Anaheim. Except, even with my decent tolerance at the time, these particular chocolates hit me like a truck, coming at me full speed. Even after 20 minutes or so, I was already exploring space while in line at security. It took extra concentration to go through each step at the scanners, and even emptying my pockets into the tray on the X-ray conveyor belt was a real freaking struggle. By the time we settled into our seats by our gate, I knew I needed to find a way to shake it off. Pretty abruptly, my wife told me later, stood up and let her know I needed to go for a walk by myself. I figured that would help keep me grounded and focused on other things. I was also getting worried about being literally grounded. If the gate agents or any of the flight attendants figured out how absolutely blasted I was, they'd probably deny me boarding. After a few minutes, the walk was starting to help, and it was time I headed back to my gate. My boarding time was coming up, and I was going to have to hope I looked at least somewhat sober when getting on the plane. Looking around the part of the airport I was in, I didn't recognize anything around me. Glancing up to the sign above me, my stomach sank when it read baggage claim and taxi pickup. I had somehow gotten out of the departure area. I must have walked through one of those one-way gates you often go through at your destination, without even noticing. I was going to have to go back through security again, and I figured I was screwed. In my head, the TSA agent was going to know how disoriented I was, and they were going to tell the airline I couldn't fly. As I was walking back to the security entrance, my overly active brain was racing, jumping to the conclusion that I was about to ruin the entire trip by getting our flight cancelled, and my wife was going to be upset, disappointed, and let down. What if getting denied boarding was the last straw in a secret, long list of grievances? What if this event is the catalyst that leads to our marriage falling apart? What if that sends me spiraling into a depression that costs me my job, and I end up living alone in a cardboard box? Such are the thought paths of someone having an exceptionally bad time while absolutely out of it. I arrived back at the security checkpoint, only to seemingly have my fears confirmed. The TSA agent scanning boarding passes at the beginning of the line takes a look at me and says, "Wait a minute, didn't you already come through here? I swear I saw you like half an hour ago. What are you doing back here?" In my state of panic, I try my hardest to come up with a casual, yet clear explanation to reply with, something a totally sober guy might say. I managed to muster up my best effort, while not even looking at the TSA agent. I thought I couldn't let my eyes give myself away. After all, I reply with a sentence of pure literary mastery. I dunno. Except I didn't even enunciate the words, I just shrugged my shoulders and sort of mumbled it, in a sing-song kind of way. And all while mostly either staring at the floor or gazing off into the distance. She then pauses for a moment, says, okay then, and asks to see my boarding pass again. She takes a quick glance at it and asks, "Off to LA today?" "No, Disneyland," I replied cheerfully. I don't know why I didn't just say yes, I was going to LAX. I guess I was trying to make conversation? Beats me, now that I'm looking back on it. Right then, the TSA woman looks at me as if she had just made a grand realization, and I figure I'm screwed. She's on to me. But instead of asking me if I've had anything to drink, smoke, or if I was okay to fly, she completely changes her tone of voice. Now, in a happy, higher-pitched but slower tone, she says back to me, "Oh, how exciting. Well, if you got lost, that's okay. We can help you get back. Then once you get to Disneyland, you'll get to have so much fun on all the rides." Meanwhile, I'm standing there, obliviously thinking to myself, yeah, I will have fun. Thanks, strangely friendly TSA lady. In her now extra well-pronounced, basic words, she then asks if I have anyone waiting for me at the gate, like an assistant or something. The assistant question got me confused. Is that some sort of policy-based question I had never heard before? I tell her a simple no, while probably still glaring at the wall or something. She then asks if I need any extra help at security, and tells me to say hi to Mickey for me. Smiling, but still freaking out and slightly confused inside, I let out a simple, "Thanks," and go back through the scanner. I just had to get out of there as quickly as I could. Now walking back toward my wife at the gate, it all hits me like a ton of bricks. The TSA agent thought I was another form of incapacitated entirely, someone who rode the short bus going to school and is now on a field trip to Disneyland with support workers and aides. Now turning beet red, I sit back down beside my wife, and before she could say anything, I blurt out, "The entire security staff back there thinks I'm legitimately mentally handicapped." She still looks back on that as one of her favorite moments of our marriage so far. And as it happens, the flight itself wasn't even any better on the chocolates, either.
My boyfriend's female work bestie is getting overly close to him, acting all innocent, but I can see bot behavior from a mile away and she is for the streets. Posted by you/had moved in without me. My 25F boyfriend, 25M, works in the creative industry. He works very closely with a girl named Charlie, 28F, because their jobs are interlinked. They go on overnight work trips twice a month, travel to another country together twice a year, etc. They get along really well. I trust my boyfriend entirely. I know where his heart is. He keeps things completely platonic and talks about me constantly. Charlie is really attractive and gets a lot of male attention. Historically, the only incident that raised a red flag for me was when she invited my boyfriend one-on-one to a spa on one of their work trips, which he declined. This weekend, he invited me on a work bar crawl and all was well. I said hi to Charlie and spoke to his other workmates. Charlie didn't really make much effort with me. I initiated a conversation once at the second bar, and that was our only interaction. However, she spent the night constantly going up to my boyfriend and pulling him aside for private chats in front of me. She mostly ignored my presence and didn't say anything like "X talks about you all the time, you two are so cute," etc., which I would have done if I were meeting my work best friend's fiancé to make her feel comfortable. She acted like she didn't even know we were together, stuck close to him, and basically ignored me the whole night. At the third bar, Charlie pulled me aside to take photos of her and my boyfriend together. She didn't take photos with anyone else and allegedly only posted him on her Instagram story. My boyfriend said that she really enjoys male attention. There were two guys she was flirting with, one of whom was my boyfriend's best friend. Later on, even he and my own friend, who came along, independently noticed how frequently Charlie kept approaching my boyfriend, and thought it was weird, considering this was the first time I was meeting her. I kind of feel disrespected and uncomfortable. They chat a lot on social media since they're friends. It seems like, because all the guys give her attention, she seeks it most from my boyfriend since he's the only one who doesn't flirt with her. No boundaries have been crossed, and they have to see each other every day, so it hasn't reached a point where it needs to be addressed. I don't want to ruin his friendship and make things awkward. I just don't know how to feel or what to do. I'm not sure if she's just oblivious or intentionally trying to step on my toes. I've spoken to my boyfriend about all of this, and he agrees it's weird. I told him to just keep an eye on her, but nothing further than that. Part of me feels like if one of my work friends disrespected my boyfriend, I wouldn't stay so friendly with them. Am I overreacting? Update 1 month later. So, after the night out, I spoke with my boyfriend, and he understood every concern that I raised. I also saw that Charlie messaged him 6 times after the night out. He always speaks about me at work affectionately. During the night out, he held my hand throughout the parts of the night when we moved from bar to bar. He affectionately held my face and said that he was a gentleman for only me in front of Charlie, and he calls her bro and made it work. I found out that Charlie sent him photos of her skimpy outfit choices prior to the night out. I read his messages, which we argued about, and I apologized for breaking his trust. He had replied to her platonically, "Top one is better," to end the conversation, but it was too passive of a response to those kinds of photos, in my opinion. I also remember that she tried to get my boyfriend to carry her jacket that night and referred to him as Petey Pie whenever she mentioned him, not his real name. He sought counsel from a few of his friends on the situation, showed them the photos Charlie had sent, and the universal opinion was that Charlie is a homewrecker. If you recall, my boyfriend's best friend, who came along that night and was the one who noticed how uncomfortable I was, tried to kiss Charlie, but she played dumb as if she didn't hear him. The next day at work, however, the first thing she did was go up to my boyfriend's desk and brag, "Your friend tried to kiss me," laughing about it. She allegedly has a history of fishing for compliments. My boyfriend suggested he confront her directly about her behavior, but I told him it might be better to try setting boundaries more directly first in case she spread drama around the office since she seems unhinged, and if that didn't work, then he should consider confronting her. This is because their work is really interconnected, and going in hard might make his work situation even more uncomfortable than it already is. My boyfriend also spoke with his other workmate, who is in a relationship. His workmate advised that Charlie had made inappropriate comments to him as well in the past about her adult toys, to which he replied, "Not at work." Charlie also treated his workmate's girlfriend similarly during a different work outing. 2 weeks ago, Charlie came up to my boyfriend's desk 3 times, insisting that they should match costumes for Halloween. She accidentally called them couple costumes and suggested characters that were a couple. He shot her down on 3 separate occasions, saying that would only be okay if she were me. So, from here on, it's been a bit of a miserable situation for my boyfriend, where he has been purposely cold to her at work, and he has stopped messaging her outside of work. He has been telling her to go away when she approaches his desk and even suggested she take the train on their next work trip instead of riding in the same vehicle. It's made his work situation a bit awful because he's a lovely, bubbly person and cannot maintain a fake persona of friendship without being miserable. So, given the misery of it all, my boyfriend decided to finally confront Charlie during their long journey back from a work trip yesterday. She asked him why he's been so weird lately, and he told her everything, except the Halloween costume thing because he forgot. She apparently cried throughout the journey and said that she genuinely didn't mean to appear that way. She said that she sent him the outfit pictures because she saw him as one of the girls, but she supposedly only sent those photos to my boyfriend and the guy she had a crush on. She gave her side of the story and mentioned that since my boyfriend said I was quite secure, she didn't think twice, thought everything was okay, and that I wouldn't be jealous. She has had guy best friends in the past, and they have interacted in that way. She supposedly had a guy best friend who had a crush on her while she was in a relationship, which her ex-boyfriend didn't appreciate. My boyfriend laid down his boundaries and said that while he cannot attribute intent to her actions, it still crossed a line. She said that she'll have to second-guess herself each time she interacts with him, and he told her that maybe she should. She said that he should have confronted her earlier, and he agreed. He said that she can still be his mate, but she needs to respect the boundaries he has set because his relationship will always take priority. And that's where we are now. I feel like it's great that he has set his hard boundaries. He says she was genuinely really upset and didn't want to seem like she wasn't a girl's girl. My boyfriend can go back to work without the tension of the elephant in the room. I said I probably shouldn't attend their work Christmas party, and he agreed, saying it would cause tension. Just generally about the whole situation of their friendship, my gut feeling is that I still don't like her, and part of me doesn't want their friendship to return to the way it was before, but I can't figure out why or what I should say, if I should say anything at all, since he's officially done everything he can. I don't know what boundaries to consider moving forward in terms of their friendship, or if I should just let it go back to how it used to be with the cautionary side of the boundaries now in place. I don't care if she apologizes, I don't like her. Please let me know your thoughts. Thanks for all the help. I have read every last comment and appreciated the support.